as the Italian Prime Minister has also rained fire on liberals. Now, Georgia Meloni launched a scathing attack on what she describes as a liberal network, accused the left of hypocrisy. She named some leaders who are leading the conservative movement across the world, which included Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and said that Bill Clinton and Tony Blair created a global leftist liberal network who call these leaders like Trump, Modi, a threat to democracy. Prime Minister Meloni argued that liberals have become increasingly frustrated with the rise of right-wing leaders, particularly following President Trump's return to the White House.
When Bill Clinton and Tony Blair created the global leftist liberal network in the 90s, they were called statesmen. Today, when Trump, Meloni, Milei, or maybe Modi talk, they are called a threat to democracy. This is the left's double standard. But we're used to it. We are used to it. And the good news is people no longer believe in their lies. Despite all the mud they throw at us, citizens keep voting for us. Because simply, people are not naive as the left considers them. They vote for us because we defend freedom. We love our nations. We want secure borders. We preserve businesses and citizens from the green leftist insanity. We defend family and life. We fight against wokeism. We protect our sacred right to our faith and our free speech. And we stand for common sense when we stopped invasions, won our independences, and overthrew dictators. And we have done it together the last 3 years in Ukraine, where a proud people fight for their freedom against brutal aggression. And we must continue today, working together for a just and lasting peace, a peace that can only be built with the contribution of all, but above all, with strong leaderships. And I know that with Donald Trump leading the United States, we will never again see the disaster we saw in Afghanistan 4 years ago. Vice President Vance was discussing something deeper: identity, democracy, freedom of speech. In short, Europe's historic role and mission. Many pretended to be outraged, calling for European pride against an American daring to lecture us. But let me tell you, as someone who is proud to be European, first, if those who were outraged had shown the same pride when Europe lost its strategic autonomy, tying its economy to autocratic regimes, or when European borders and our way of life were threatened by mass illegal migration, now we would live in a stronger Europe.
Sherry Malhotra continues to be with us. Sherry, how do you look at that statement? You know, Georgia Meloni not mincing any words there. Mud that they throw at us is what she said in very strong words, talking about the fact that previously the leaders would be called statesmen and we are called as threat to democracy. I think these statements also in a way indicate and give a sign of the times to come, really, isn't it? When it comes to, cooperation between these leaders.
Yes, well, I think, Meloni represents the far right. And, this is a phenomenon that we're seeing throughout Europe. It's a new era in Europe, one in which the far right has made advances in all parts of the continent, from Germany to France to Spain and the Netherlands, at the EU level as well. Last year in June, when you had the European Parliament elections, even while the center right held ground, the far right did, gain a lot of advances in those elections. So we've seen the sort of rampant economic and political instability in Europe. And I think this has led to a decline in the popularity of mainstream parties and also a boosted support for the far right. And this whole American interference, Elon Musk, that has controversially inserted himself into the German election campaign. He campaigned in favor of the Alternative for Deutschland party, which fared very well in the elections. They came second in place. So I think this is the sort of phenomena that we're witnessing today in Europe. And in fact, politicians across Europe, even Scholz, Chancellor Scholz, several mainstream parties and politicians across Europe have been guilty of pandering to the far-right agenda, given that the far-right is advancing so quickly. So we saw a few months ago that Scholz had introduced new security measures on border control as a response to the recent stabbings in Germany that involved migrants. In January, in fact, the incoming Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, pushed through a non-binding motion on tougher immigration rules with support for the far-right AfD. And in a sense, he was accused of breaking the so-called firewall, which is a sort of unwritten agreement to never work or seek the support of the far-right. In France, the firewall is referred to as the cordon sanitaire, but in Germany, with its dark history, again, the firewall is even more sacred. So there are fears that his weakening of the firewall against the AfD could further normalize the far-right and its rhetoric in Europe. And of course, if Germany, which is Europe's traditional powerhouse, abandons the firewall against the far-right, this could set off a precedent in Europe.
Well, absolutely. Sherry, I'm going to thank you for joining in and sharing your views with us. Certainly interesting times ahead. Of course, this election could change the narrative and also Europe's response really to issues like their approach towards Trump and also the Russia-Ukraine ongoing war. This obviously will have an impact on that too. Thanking you, leaving it at that for the moment, Sherry.